Good morning and welcome to Daily Cyber Briefing for Friday, the 11th of October. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Apple has released patches for a voiceover flaw that inadvertently could read aloud passwords. Looks like it was a bit of an oversight when, if you might be aware that if you use Apple devices or macOS devices, that in macOS 18, no, sorry, iOS 18 rather, the Apple has introduced. God, I'm not very articulate this morning, am I? So in iOS 18, Apple introduced a password app. The password app behaves so. Previously, it was possible to store passwords in Keychain. Keychain kind of, it felt like it was meant to be going on in the background, but you could go and look at it if you had to. And it was one of the places that Apple devices used to autofill usernames, passwords, and various other bits and pieces. But it was generic. It also stored Wi-Fi passwords and all sorts of other bits and pieces. Well, rather than continue exclusively using Keychain, Apple's introduced an actual password manager, which looks to be perfectly decent. Although I'm, wouldn't necessarily recommend migrating everything onto it unless your requirements are reasonably straightforward. But it'll develop. It'll get better. Anyway, I think that nobody in their testing team thought of the scenario where somebody on an iOS device uses VoiceOver. VoiceOver, by the way, just reads the content of the screen to you, and it's part of the accessibility tools. Actually, it's not brilliant, but it's not a bad way of getting your iOS device to read things to you. However, it found that it was if you opened the password app, it was reading out loud your passwords. This has been fixed now in iOS 18.01. Sorry, 18.0.1. And therefore, if you are using iOS 18, good idea to update as soon as possible, just to eliminate the potential for risks in this area. Wouldn't say it's the highest severity vulnerabilities, but equally, it's definitely something that is a good idea to get on top of. Okay, the US and the UK cyber agencies are warning that APT29, APT29 being most likely part of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, SVR is targeting vulnerable Zimbra and Team City services on a mass scale, at a mass scale. The NSA and the NCSC are both sending out advisories on recommending that defenders patch exposed servers to block these ongoing attacks. So the vulnerabilities are not new. So a couple of vulnerabilities: CVE 2022-27924 and CVE 2023-42793 are associated with the exploits. There are patches available. So if you are using either of those two solutions, would very strongly recommend that you update them. The patches have been out for a while, as far as I am aware, so it really isn't much of an excuse for not having dealt with this. If you can't patch for some business critical reason, then think that you can put in place around that, around those systems. And then finally from me for today and for this week, there's an article in Dark Reading which is worth having a look at, talking about Microsoft's direction of travel for admin accounts. There is a plan to change the way that administrative accounts work. Right now, you effectively get what's called a split token model, which is managed by the user account control system. It's kind of gated in that sense. There is a move to an isolated shadow environment managed by the system instead. So basically, if your account has rights to undertake administrative level actions, as you go to do those actions, the system creates an administrator account at that point, does the action, takes the action, and then deletes the account that was used. Now, it's I think this sounds kind of clever. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it does get round some of the things like pass the hash attacks. It makes it more difficult to undertake administrative actions without having compromised the administrator account itself. So some of these old, some of the old tricks like pass the hash. You can tell it's the end of the week, can't you? Oh dear, professionalism in this is unbelievable. Right. It makes some of these more traditional ways of bypassing authentication in order to undertake elevated privilege actions, makes them an awful lot harder. So it's quite cool. Definitely worth a read. Also worth having a think about. Just to be aware of any potential changes there might be to any business critical processes you may have that rely on administrative level accounts. I mean, hopefully you've thought through, and for you have service accounts with limited rights, limited elevated rights, if you see what I mean. So only do the things I need to do already, but either way, it's kind of cool direction of travel, definitely worth being aware of. So that is all from me.